Is it windy? Is it windy? It's like it's howling up here. We are Terry and Cindy O'Keefe. We've been camping together for more than 40 years, and we invite you to join us in a 12-episode adventure as we explore the Yukon and Alaska. We're in Whitehorse. This is the Yukon Transportation Museum. And this is what they say is the world's largest wind vane. It's actually turning right now with the wind direction. Oh, that is so awesome. After nearly a week submersed in the remoteness of the Alaska highway, Whitehorse almost seems like a major metropolis when you come upon it. But in truth, it's home to 34,000 people, and that is 3/4 of the population of the entire Yukon.
The many Alaskan travelers that we spoke with simply use Whitehorse as a restocking stop. But there are many interesting things to see and do. There is a Walmart and grocery stores and unique downtown area with many shops. It's a great area to go for a walk in.
We spent 3.5 days exploring the Whitehorse area, including a day trip to Carcross and Skagway. Many people don't realize Skagway, Alaska is only a 2.5-hour drive from Whitehorse. And it was one of the prettiest drives that we did on our entire trip.
Well, it was up to a point.
Are you over there somewhere?
When we got high into the mountains and literally right at the border, the fog rolled in. We had a long chat about driving the last 20 kilometers through the mountains in the fog. Ultimately, discretion got the better part of valor and we turned back, but we did get to visit the quaint village of Carcross.
Originally called Caribou Crossing, Carcross is a quaint community, but COVID closures seem to have taken a toll on many of the shops in Carcross Commons as they were closed. But we did enjoy just wandering around and waiting for the Matthew Watson General Store, the oldest operating store in the Yukon, and a fixture during the 1898 gold rush to open. We picked up a few souvenirs and, of course, some ice cream, which, of course, we were going to need hiking in the world's smallest desert.
The next day was rainy, so we decided to visit the Beringia Interpretive Center. It is an interesting museum where you can explore the formation of the continents, the Ice Age, its animals, and learn about the first peoples of the Americas.
On our last morning in Whitehorse, we took an interpretive hike through Miles Canyon. It's hosted by the Yukon Conservation Society, and if you want to join the hike, you actually have to just sign up for it at the visitor center.
The tramway started by the riverbank here and went all the way down to the toe of the rapids, which would be the Hydro Dam nowadays.
Where the Yukon River flows through Miles Canyon today is much tamer thanks to a hydroelectric dam than when the sourdoughs, the miners heading to Dawson City during the Klondike gold rush would have found it. But there's still many signs of that activity, and there's artifacts from those miners that you can still see when you go on the hike, including a tramway car that was used to ferry their equipment around what was once deadly rapids in that area. So how was our guided hike?
It was awesome. Awesome. Really enjoy this hike. Make sure you do take good hiking boots, poles if you need them, bear spray. There were a couple of spots that were a bit rugged, but we were very fortunate in that we had 2 guides who took us through the entire hike.
And it's worth noting that it was free, but we did give a gratuity to our guides.
Tiny bit more. Stop.
So when we finished the hike, we headed back to the campground and hooked up and started our trek to Dawson City via the Klondike Highway. The drive was just as remote as the Alaskan, but it wasn't as mountainous. There was evidence of forest fires that had closed the road the week before, and there was just enough frost heaves and potholes to keep you on your toes. In fact, it was on the Klondike that we encountered our first frost heave with a twist. Most of them we'd seen up to then were kind of in this motion. We hit one that was kind of like this and then went, it kind of flipped to the right like it was trying to toss you off the road. So that was interesting. At about the halfway mark, we came to the town of Carmacks and were greeted by a very chatty raven. It was the first time we'd actually encountered one quite like this, and then we discovered it everywhere in the northern part of the Yukon. The ravens they're very brazen and they're very chatty and they make really cool sounds. The Hotel Carmack has a store, restaurant, and an RV park where we spent the night. I'm going to put it in four-wheel drive here just in case. The next day had us driving through the two longest construction areas of our trip.
As we approached Dawson City, we were greeted by the most unique and beautifully colored fox we have ever seen.
So I have to ask you, what are you thinking now that you're here?
Just excited to be here.
Dawson City is a truly unique destination. We absolutely loved it. Located just 165 miles south of the Arctic Circle, it's the home of the Klondike Gold Rush. And visiting here is almost like stepping back in time to 1898. The streets are dirt, the sidewalks are wood. History buffs will absolutely love it here.
And Parks Canada also offers some great attractions.
So this is kind of how it would have been back in the day.
There are narrated walking tours of the historic downtown.
So it's really heavy, dense material. So I do get the question sometimes, well, weren't there any bank robberies? There's only one way in and one way out, the river. It's pretty heavily guarded by the Northwest Mounted Police. Once you get down over there, they're gonna check all of your stuff out. And if you wanted to try any other way, walking through the forest with this is not really practical.
You must sign up at the visitor center for these tours, and they do fill up because they're very popular. There's also tours of the Robert Service Cabin. Parks Canada also offers guided tours of the Keno, a steam-powered paddle wheeler that once plied the Yukon and other northern rivers.
So what you see on either sides of the port and starboard sides is these pipes holding steam that run to the engines, and then connecting out the back, these what are called pitman arms. They're white long columns that attach to the paddle wheel.
And tours are also available of dredge number 4.
And then what do? Pull up that spud out of the muck behind, tighten those cables on the side, pull the whole thing forward about 10 feet, flush it up against what it cut away, and start again. So that's how you get those series of raised ridges about 10 feet apart.
Built in 1912, it's the largest wooden-hulled bucket line gold dredge in North America.
Has anybody seen a sluice box in action? It has to be very perfectly balanced, very finely balanced. A little bit difficult to finely balance things like a 1,600-foot sluice box when you've got very large bits of metal and everything moving. But yet they managed it.
And if you want to try your hand panning for gold, well, first, hopefully you'll be better at it than we were. But the Klondike Visitors Association actually has a public claim number 6 that's available for you. You can even pick up a pan at the Visitor Center for free to borrow. And speaking of the Visitor Center, they have fantastic information about what to see, what to do. They can even tell you when the caravans are coming into town and leaving, because that may help you with scheduling when you want to cross on the ferry. And if you're thinking of going the Dempster Highway to up to Tuktoyaktuk. Directly across the street, the blue and gray building there, is the Northwest Territories Visitor Information Center.
History buffs will also enjoy the Dawson City Museum. It was well curated and a lot of great displays. And there's also a small museum that has been dedicated to Jack London.
And when it comes to campgrounds, there's a few to choose from in Dawson City. We chose to stay at the Gold Rush campground. Well, it's basically a large parking lot with very tight sites. It was a well-run, full-service campground, and it's located right in downtown Dawson City. This meant that you could walk to the river, the shops, the museums, the visitor center in just a few minutes. And that includes Diamond Tooth Gertie's Gambling Hall.
So we just finished watching the show at Gertie's. What time is it?
10:38.
10:38. And the sun isn't set.
Shining over there.
Oh yeah, look at, isn't that beautiful? Wow.
And just one quick note on Gertie's. We really enjoyed it there. But it, at least in 2022, it was not open 7 days a week. And so if going to Gertie's is important to you and planning your trip, just make sure you check to find out when they're open. And you're probably also going to want to plan to visit the downtown hotel and try a sourdough cocktail. That's where the brave can take a shot of whiskey that has, yes, a real human toe in it, and that toe has to touch your lips. How'd you do?
No problem.
There was just something about Dawson City, almost intangible, that made it really, really special. It was easy to simply find yourself wandering the streets, imagining how much different life was here 120 years ago. So many of the buildings have been wonderfully preserved, while some show the effects of 100 years of permafrost, and both were equally photogenic. And if that wasn't the view for you, there was always the Midnight Dome, a beautiful overlook just a short 10-minute drive from town.
Up a very long hill.
It is a very long haul.
Dawson City had a special family connection for me. Back in 1907, my grandfather worked as a bank manager at the Bank of British North America. This building remains a Parks Canada heritage site. We were actually able to get a tour and go inside the original building. So for me, it was very exciting to walk where he once worked and just be in that building.
You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him spending time in Dawson City, because that's where he met your grandmother.
That's right. So again, special connection.
But no one in your family had gone back to Dawson City.
No.
Okay. Pick it up here. Many travelers to Alaska don't make this side trip, but all I will say is we thought Dawson City was fantastic, one of the highlights of our trip. And if you have the time, it's definitely worth considering. And it also meant that we got to drive the top of the world highway to Alaska. There's that and more on our next episode.